Hello, welcome to another episode of Glorious Life on Wheels. Today I want to talk to you about a topic that's been on my mind for a very long time, but I didn't feel prompted to make this video about it until someone made a comment on my live this past Saturday. They were sharing how some years back when they were living in their car, how they were so afraid to tell their boss that they were living in their car. And I thought, you know what? I need to do a video on how and why people are shamed, disrespected, and even punished for living in vehicles. And you know what? There's a lot more to it than simply living in a car. Stay tuned, and I'm going to share with you the 5 reasons I think that people are so disdainful and harsh on people who live as nomads in vehicles. I think one of the reasons that people are so harsh and view people who live in vans or cars with such disdain is that it goes against societal norms. When you go against what society has said is the norm, when you're kind of swimming upstream, there's a price to be paid. Think about it. Some years back, when divorce was not that common, think about how people who were divorced were kind of shunned and cast out of society, especially women. You would not be invited to social events. All of a sudden, you found that your friends or people you thought were friends weren't returning your calls or were no longer calling you. That even happens to some extent today. But when you go against a societal norm or a cultural norm based on what culture you're a part of, there's a price to be paid, and you are punished for doing so. I think there's also an element of fear that you're upsetting the apple cart, and people kind of like things to go along the way they have always been. Have you ever heard people on a job, when you want to do something that might be more efficient or a better way to do a task, say, well, we've always done it this way? People like consistency. They like regularity. And when you do something outside of the box, it challenges people. It threatens them. If you've ever done something that was considered going against the grain, whether in your family, at your job, or even in your church, and were punished for it, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Let me know in the comment section what happened to you. The second reason that I believe people look down on those who are living in vehicles is that we live in a country where our society dictates so often that a person's value is not determined by the content of their character, but rather by what they have. Their success is not measured based on how they treat people or even the quality of their relationships. Their success is so often based on things that, when you really think about it, add very little value to society or to life. Let me just give you an example. We will pay, or when I say we, the system that's set up will pay someone millions of dollars to throw a football down a field, but we'll pay someone who takes care of our elderly people, who provides love and care to them. We will pay them minimum wage and not even a livable wage. And that kind of ties into number 3. Many in this country view homeless people as disposable. I know that's a harsh word, but that's how a lot of people view homeless. And they just wish they would go away, be out of sight, not have to be dealt with. Well, a lot of people in this country view those who are nomads and living in vehicles as homeless. And there's a stereotypical idea many people have that homeless people are the people that you see living on the streets, dumping trash, having the big shopping carts full of all of their belongings, looking disheveled, mentally ill, on drugs, so on and so forth and so on. And that really does not even begin to encapsulate or describe the way that many people who are nomads live. But there's a stereotypical view of homeless, and a lot of people living in vans and cars get lumped into that view, and as a result are treated with disdain and disrespect because of that perception. The fourth reason that so many people mistreat or look down on people living as nomads or in vehicles is based on a false narrative. So often people assume that if you're living in a van or a car or RV, that you're doing so because you're living in poverty. And in this country, there's a tendency to view people who are poor as inferior. There's a tendency to assume that they're poor because they made poor life choices, they didn't know how to manage their money, they are lazy and didn't want to work, or there is some character flaw that is attributed or connected to their poverty. And so often, nothing could be further from the truth. So many people are one paycheck away from losing their housing, or one major life catastrophe, or one, look at the people in Texas who are dealing with the floods and the fallout from that right now. Should they be judged if they have to move into vehicles to sustain themselves? The other error in this thinking is that many people who are living in RVs, vans, or even cars are not impoverished. They're doing so by choice. They want an adventure. They want to travel. They want the freedom that that lifestyle affords them. The fifth reason that a lot of people may mistreat or judge people who live in vehicles is going to shock you, I think. And you may or may not agree with me on this one. Let me know in the comments what you think about number 5. And I think, honestly, a lot of people are jealous and they're resentful. And let me explain. A lot of people are trapped. They feel trapped in 9-to-5 jobs. They hate their jobs. They hate their lives, but they don't either have the courage or the will or the ability to leave their situations. They're living lives of quiet, silent desperation. And they look at people on YouTube videos, and I have to admit, a lot of people do tend to glamorize van life. You know, it's sitting on the beach with, the shot of their feet facing the ocean with the back door open and a glass of wine. And that is not van life, not most of the time, but maybe some of the time. But they look at that and they think, those bums, they're living off the system. They're not paying housing tax. They're not paying, property tax. They're resentful. They're resentful what they see as freedom, and they're angry at these people who they think have escaped the rat race, and they envision themselves living in it for maybe another 20, 30 years, and they're angry. They're walking around angry and resentful of the lives they're living and of the people who they think are having the freedom not to have to live like they're living. But hey, that's just my take on it. But those are the 5 main reasons that I think, people who live in vans, van life, cars, are looked at with such disdain in this country. If you've experienced anyone mistreating you or kind of looking at you askew or acting like you're crazy because you either live in a van or a vehicle, or you've done something that's outside the norm, again, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. Meanwhile, stay tuned later this week. If all goes well, I'm keeping my fingers crossed, but if all goes well, I'm going to air a tour of a DIY vehicle, a tiny little vehicle that is set up for full-time living in. It was built out by someone who is one of my favorite YouTubers. And he does just some amazing DIY builds in some of everything. You don't want to miss this. In fact, he built out the vehicle that I'm in right now, this minivan, which I still have to do a tour of for you. But do stay tuned. You don't want to miss this upcoming tour. And tune in every Saturday at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for Glow Live. We talk about some of everything on that live. And it is the most amazing and fun group of people you will ever meet on the internet or anywhere else. Meanwhile, I love each and every one of you. May your journeys be filled with joy and blessings in abundance, and I will see you down the road.